Members of the Neskantaga First Nation are finally home after a 60-day evacuation, but their water is still not safe enough to drink. The community's water was shut off in the fall after an oily sheen was discovered in the reservoir. Upgrades to the water system were scheduled to be completed in 2018. But residents are still waiting nearly 3 years later. And now an investigation by Global News, APTN, and the Institute for Investigative Journalism has found Neskantaga isn't the only First Nation to encounter issues with contractors. Catherine Ward reports.
When you arrive in Neskantaga First Nation in Northern Ontario, you can't help but notice the signs. The community here has been under a boil water advisory since 1995. The longest in Canada.
My daughter, she's 23 years old and never had clean drinking water.
Kingdom Construction Limited was hired in 2017 to construct the upgrade to the community's water treatment plant and distribution system. The goal, make clean drinking water available by May 2018. However, after an 8-month delay, Neskantaga terminated the contract. The federal government has invested $16.4 million to date, but residents still cannot drink the water.
You hate to see your relatives, your children, your future living in this condition, and there seems to be no end.
In the fall, Neskantaga leaders called for an investigation into the business practices of the contractors and engineering firms that worked on their water system. Global News and its partners have spoken to 4 other First Nations who allege Kingdom Construction delivered work that was incomplete, late, and over budget. Indigenous Services Canada acknowledges issues with the conduct of some firms, but wouldn't address specific allegations against any one company.
Neskantaga is a particularly acute example of that. There are issues with third-party contractors and spotty records and sharp practices. And as you see across Canada, you have contractors that don't necessarily behave well.
This is Ryan Tababadung's community, Wasaksing First Nation along Georgian Bay. Kingdom Construction was also hired to build a water treatment plant here in 2010.
It was pretty early on that we received a request for an extra.
Do you remember the cost?
The ask was over $1 million.
Tababadung says even though the project was finished in 2012, it was delayed by 11 months and over budget. In a phone interview with APTN's Melissa Ridgen, the president of Kingdom Construction said his company wanted to avoid First Nations projects in the future.
We just don't want to go back to native work anymore. And the reason is it's just too complicated. There's too much politics, too many players. Everybody's trying to cover their butt, and it's very complex.
Landry later apologized for the language he used and acknowledged that it was culturally insensitive. Kingdom denies any allegations that its work did not meet the highest standards, including in Neskantaga, adding that in any project there can be unforeseen expenses and potential delays, and that additional costs are always approved by the design engineers based on the facts on the ground. Catherine Ward, Global News.